Why do you sometimes feel like you're walking onto a stage the moment you leave your bedroom? You're standing in line for coffee, and suddenly, you're not just a person waiting for a latte. You're the protagonist in a montage. You adjust your posture, check your reflection in the pastry case, and wonder if the person behind you thinks you look effortlessly cool or tragically tired. You aren't just living your life, you're performing it for an invisible audience that you've convinced yourself is watching every move. In this video, we're going to look at why we turn ourselves into the lead characters of a movie that isn't actually filming. We'll unpack why your brain keeps narrating your own life back to you, why this makes social interactions feel like high stakes auditions, and the hidden psychological reason why being the main character often makes you feel more lonely than special. Think about the last time you walked through a crowded place with headphones on. Maybe it was a rainy day, and a specific melancholic song started playing. Suddenly, you aren't just commuting to work, you're the lead in a gritty indie drama. You stare out the window with a look of profound longing, wondering if anyone else can see the depth of your internal world. It feels good for a second, until you accidentally catch someone's eye, realize you're making a weird face at a stranger, and the whole movie collapses. You feel a sharp spike of embarrassment because the person in the audience didn't follow the script. This is what people call main character syndrome. It's a modern coping mechanism. It's that internal habit of viewing your life as a narrative where you are the hero, and everyone else is either a supporting cast member, a romantic interest, or an extra in the background. We do this because reality is often disorganized and boring. Your brain hates disorganized and boring. It wants meaning. If you're just a person who got stuck in traffic and spilled water on their shirt, that's just a bad Tuesday. But if you're the unlucky but relatable protagonist, facing a series of comical hurdles, that bad Tuesday suddenly has a plot. It's easier to handle a mess when you tell yourself it's just a scene in your character arc. But there is a specific psychological mechanism at play here called the spotlight effect. Psychologists have found that we consistently overestimate how much other people notice our appearance or our mistakes. In one famous study, researchers had students wear an intentionally embarrassing t shirt into a room full of peers. The students were convinced everyone was judging them, but in reality, fewer than half the people even noticed the shirt existed. Your brain is the center of your universe, so it naturally assumes it's the center of everyone else's too. When you walk into a party, you're so busy managing the camera angles of how you appear that you stop actually being in the room. You can feel this tension when you're talking to a friend. Instead of listening to their story about their weekend, you're thinking about how your face looks while you're listening. You're wondering if you're giving the right, supportive friend reaction. You might even find yourself rehearsing your next line so it sounds poignant or funny. The moment you start treating a conversation like a script, you lose the connection. You aren't talking to a person anymore, you're talking to a supporting character. And because supporting characters don't have their own complex inner lives in your movie, you start to feel strangely isolated. You're the star of the show, but you're the only one on set who knows what the plot is. This creates a weird, constant pressure. If you are the main character, every choice you make has to be on brand. You can't just buy a pair of shoes because they're comfortable. They have to fit the aesthetic of your life's vibe. You can't just have a hobby. You have to be the person who is known for that hobby. Eventually, you start to feel like a prisoner of your own narrative. You're exhausted from maintaining the aesthetic of your life, but you're afraid to stop because you don't know who you are if you aren't the lead. You've built a world where everything is about you, only to realize that being the only person that matters is actually pretty heavy. Your brain keeps repeating this because it feels safe. If you're the main character, you're in control. If things go wrong, it's just a setback before the big finale. But this logic has a glitch. By turning your life into a story, you stop living the actual moments and start watching them from the balcony. You become a spectator of your own existence, constantly checking the reviews in other people's eyes to see if you're doing a good job. The problem with being the star of your own movie is that you're also the director, the lighting crew, and the person desperately checking the box office numbers. It's a lot of unpaid labor. To step out of the main character trap, we have to start by firing the audience. Next time you're at the gym or walking through a grocery store and you feel that familiar itch, the urge to look a certain way or pose for the invisible camera, try a small experiment. Instead of focusing on how you appear to others, pick out three people in the room and realize they're currently the stars of their own, equally complex movies. That guy over there isn't an extra in your morning. He's currently worrying about a work email, or he's excited about a date, or he's wondering if he left the stove on. When you realize that everyone else is just as preoccupied with their own scripts as you are, the spotlight on you finally turns off. It's not a rejection, it's a release. A practical shift you can try this week is what I call the extra test. When you're in a social situation and you feel yourself rehearsing your next line to sound impressive, intentionally say something boring. Ask a simple, uncinematic question. Don't worry about the arc of the conversation. By giving yourself permission to be a background character for 20 minutes, you'll notice something strange. People actually like you more. When you stop performing, you start listening. When you stop managing your vibe, you actually become present. You'll find that you're less drained after hanging out with people because you weren't carrying the weight of a lead performance the whole time. Another shift is to stop narrating your setbacks. When you drop your phone or get a rejection letter, notice if your brain starts saying, "Of course, this always happens to me." This is the part where the hero hits rock bottom. Catch that thought and strip the story away. You aren't a character in a tragedy. You're just a person who had a bad 10 minutes. Instead of asking, "What does this mean for my story?" ask, "What do I need to do in the next 5 minutes?" One is a dramatic performance, the other is just living. This takes the loudness out of your mistakes and makes them manageable again. You might also find yourself aestheticizing your pain, posting a sad song on your story, or looking at yourself in the mirror while you cry to see if you look poetically miserable. It's an attempt to make the pain feel purposeful, but it actually keeps you stuck in it. Try this instead. The next time you feel a big emotion, experience it in the dark or with your eyes closed. Take away the visual element. Without a viewer to see your sadness, you'll find it passes much faster. You aren't performing grief anymore, you're just feeling it. The goal here isn't to make yourself feel small or unimportant, it's to realize that you are allowed to be unobserved. There is a massive amount of freedom in being unobserved. When you aren't the main character, you're allowed to be messy. You're allowed to be inconsistent. You're allowed to wear a shirt that doesn't fit your aesthetic just because it's clean. When you drop the narrative, you move from being a brand to being a human being. You'll start to realize that the most beautiful moments in life aren't the ones that would look good in a montage. They're the quiet, unrecorded moments where you forgot you even had a face because you were so involved in what you were doing. You aren't a character being written by a script. You're the one holding the pen, and you're allowed to stop writing the drama and just start living the reality. If you've ever caught yourself acting your way through a normal day, let me know in the comments what your movie genre usually is. It helps to realize we're all doing the same thing. And if this helped you breathe a little easier, consider subscribing. We'll keep looking at these weird daily patterns together.